Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's Friday morning webinar. This week we're going to be talking about the selection report, which is another one of our off-the-shelf reports available through the COAST system. I'm going to talk you through a little bit about what the selection report is and when you might like to use it, and then show you some practical tips around how you would set this up if you were using it as part of a role selection process. So you've got a good idea of how to use the report and then how to set it up in the first place as well. So, the selection report, what is it? So the selection report is a report which gives you an idea of the degree of fit between the candidates that you are asking to complete your assessments and the job competencies. So it gives you a little bit more control over what you see in terms of the candidate's output from the different assessments as part of the selection process. So, in comparison to some of our other reports, where, for example, if we're using a personality questionnaire and getting a report off the back of that, what the selection report allows us to do is be slightly more specific and set the algorithms that we would like to more closely reflect what a good fit looks like for us. So rather than having the 1 to 10 STEM score scale used, we are able to flex that a little bit to actually allocate where exactly we want the candidates to sit along that particular scale. The report is designed to not just be used for a personality questionnaire, but actually can incorporate results from ability tests as well. And I guess the main aim of this report is to make things as easy, as accurate and as informative as they can be for you. So if it's a recruitment process where you want a good quick overview of how suitable a candidate is for a role, this is the report for you. This is going to be the best thing for you to use. Before we look at the report in a bit more detail, what I'd like to do is just talk you through a scenario where I can show you how you would go about setting up one of these job matching or selection reports. So let's take, for example, a customer service agent. So we are wanting to recruit some individuals who are going to be a really good fit for our customer service agent role. So the first thing we're going to do is think about the competencies, the attributes, and the skills, and maybe the personality that we want from our customer service agents. It might be that we have a competency framework and a person specification to work with already, and we're now at the stage of thinking about what that looks like in terms of personality and putting together our Criterion attribute library questionnaire. So what I can do is have a think about what scales are going to work for us, and I've got some ideas here in terms of what I'm looking for this customer service agent role. So firstly, I want them to be really good listeners, so they're going to listen to our customers, really have really good active listening skills. I want them to be adaptable because we've got a really diverse customer base and we want to make sure that they're able to adapt their style dependent on the person they're talking to. We want them to be resilient, so have an ability to bounce back after difficult situations. They're going to be gregarious, so they're going to enjoy interacting and socialising with others and enjoy that people element of the role. We want them to be optimistic, so we want them to expect things to turn out well, and we want them to enjoy caring in their role, so actually helping people and supporting others as part of the job that they do. However, there's some other scales that I've seen on the list where I think actually I would like to see how they fit along this scale, but not necessarily looking for people who are kind of have a strong preference at the higher end of this scale. So an example might be competition. So it might be that as part of my customer service role, it's not necessarily going to be a large part of their role to be in competition with others. And actually what we're looking for is individuals who are more collaborative by nature. And collaborative is essentially the lower end of the competition scale. So individuals who would normally be shown as maybe a STEM score of 1 and 2 on the competition scale, it might be that actually that could be described in another way, which is to say that they're collaborative. The same with assertive and direct. So I do want individuals who are, in some instances, able to assert their views and be direct in terms of the way that they express those. However, I want people who've got a bit of a balance there. So again, I'm not looking for people with that strong preference in the direction of being assertive or direct. I'm more inclined to look for people who've got more of a balanced approach across those two scales. So those are the scales that I'm looking for. And if I now flip over to the COAST system, I can show you how we would go about setting that up. So you can see here I am in the back end of the COAST system, which some of you, if not all of you, will be familiar with. What I do is I go to the questionnaires tab and I select to add a new personality questionnaire. So I am going to add a new questionnaire to the system, which is going to allow me to measure those particular traits. The first thing I need to do is put some basic information around what the questionnaire is, what I want to call it. I'm calling it the customer service agent. I'm saying that this questionnaire is designed to measure your level of fit with a customer service. We keep this in English, and I'm going to use the 6-item version of the questionnaire. We now get to the page where we're able to allocate the different scales that we want to measure. So I've already done this. I've already selected the scales that I want. All I need to do is now drag and drop these into the 3 competency areas that I'm looking to measure. And actually, all I'm going to be measuring here is interpersonal style, emotional style, and motivation. So I'm going to get rid of a couple of categories here and keep these ones as part of the questionnaire as they are. So firstly, I can very easily just be selecting the scales that I'm looking to measure. So I've got listening, I've got gregarious, I wanted people who were adaptable. And then I'm also selecting the scales of assertive and direct, although we know that we're going to be matching those, so we're going to do some extra work with those scales in a moment. For emotional style, I wanted people who were optimistic and resilient. Okay. And then finally, we wanted some culture fit scales or motivation scales. So I was going to put caring, and competition was another one where we wanted to adjust it a bit. So there we are. I've got a very short questionnaire. So it's just 9 scales that I'm measuring, but those are the key competencies that I'm looking for and the key things that I want to see in my candidates. So what I can do now is click the next button, and then that just gives me an overview of what I've selected there. What I can then do is go to the Matchings tab, and this is the bit where I enable myself to do some specific job matching. So you can see some of the scales here. I've said I actually do want the higher end of the scale. So a good job match for me, for someone on the listening scale, is someone who has a strong preference for listening to others. That's the best fit for my particular role. However, with some of these other scales, I do want to start adjusting it. So assertive. Assertive essentially is talking about how likely someone is to express their views with others, and how likely they are to want to assert themselves in situations and be a dominant force. Now, when we're thinking about a customer service agent, like I've said, we do want people who are able to have that strength of character to interact effectively with the customer. However, we don't want people that are too strong on that. So actually what I'm looking for here is someone that's got a more balanced approach. And that would be the STEM scores of the 5 and 6. So you can see here that I've got 5 bars or the kind of 5 green indicator here, which shows me that the best possible job match here is when someone has 9 or 10. I'm going to adjust that to say that actually 5 and 6 is where I see the best possible fit. And if I just play around with this a little bit, it will enable me to match that up properly. So you can see here now that I've got the best fit is in the middle, and as I go kind of further away from that middle score there, the lower it gets in terms of the job fit. I'm going to do the same with direct. Again, I want a mid-level score here, so I can just add this in like that. And the final one was competition. And actually, maybe for this one, I think, I don't want people who have a very, very strong preference for working in a competitive environment. But at the same time, they do need to be a little bit competitive. They do need to have some drive to want to compete for example, meeting their targets or particular standards that I set for them. So for this one, I might be looking for people who are a 7 and 8 as the best possible fit, and then it will gradually go down around those scores. So if I just give that a quick look over, I'm happy with the way that that's working, and I've set all my matchings. If I click the next button, that is now published and ready to go. So once I've sent that out, and once I've had my candidates complete that questionnaire, I then am able to see my selection report itself. The selection report is a very short, very simple report in terms of the content that you get and the information that's in it, and that's very deliberate. The purpose of the report is exactly that. It's to give you a quick snapshot of the level of fit that your candidates have with the role. On the first sort of page where it starts to report the information for you, what it gives you is a job fit summary. Now, the thing to note on this page, and this is the one over here, is that we are essentially reflecting the different traffic light scores that you see on the matching system that you use in COAST. So, for example, with this sample report that I'm showing you here, we can see that for the assertive scale, a good fit is actually someone who is lower on the assertive scale. So we're actually looking for someone who is slightly more gentle in terms of their approach and slightly less likely to assert themselves in situations. And we can see that by looking at the traffic light scores. So we can see here that the green is at the lower end and the red is at the top end. Other scales here, so we had listening, gregarious, influential. You can see that for these ones, the good fit or the best possible fit for the role here is at the higher end. That's why the green circle is at this end here. If you look more closely, it will then show you where the individual maps onto these particular scales, these particular traits, and it gives you a number on the scale of 1 to 5, which represents their job match or their job fit. So here, for example, we can see that this individual has a job fit of 4 because they fall towards the lower end of the assertive scale. They're more gentle in their approach, their preference is to be less assertive, and therefore that's a good job match for us. On the other hand, here we can see that on the influential scale, again, they are slightly less influential than most, and that puts them at the lower end because actually for us on this scale, we are looking for people who are more influential. At the bottom, it can then start to combine all that together and give you essentially a job fit or the overall job fit score. Now, this is directly mapped onto the algorithm that you've plugged into the system, and it's going to say, well, overall, given the things that you're looking for, given the way that you've matched the particular scales with your competency framework and what you're looking to measure, this is what the overall fit this candidate has for the job. And so that's a really nice, quick and simple way of you seeing overall how well does this person's personality match with the things that I'm looking for or are going to make them successful in the role of customer service agent. This can also start to incorporate some of the other results. So like I said, you can incorporate your ability test as part of this report, as part of the way that we're reporting here. And so that could, again, contribute to your job fit scores. On the next page, we then give you just a little bit more information, which helps you interpret it. And it also is going to be specific to the candidate's score on this one. So we can see here that we've got a great job fit. That's a 4 on the assertive scale. The text here is relating to what essentially their STEM score was on this particular scale. So we can see here that it says she is more gentle in her interpersonal style than most respondents in the comparison group, which reflects what we see here, which is that a good fit is someone lower on the assertive scale, and that's what this text represents here. So if you wanted a little bit more information or something a bit more specific about what this scale is telling me, that's where you will see it in the detailed job fit profile. The final page of the report will give you more detailed ability test results if that's something that you've included in here. So you get your overall STEM scores across the different tests, and then a little bit of narrative, which tells you a little bit about how they performed in a bit more detail. And that is the selection report. Just a few do's or don'ts around how you can actually use this effectively. So firstly, like I said, it's a quick and easy way to just see a candidate's level of fit with the role that you're recruiting for. It's a really nice, simple, colourful, and easy to use report for those purposes. It works really well in conjunction with other assessments and other reports that we might have available. So what we'd say is that it's a really good thing to have as part of your decision-making process. So it helps to inform your decision-making process around particular candidates. And it can obviously combine both personality and ability test results, so slightly superior to some of the other reports out there in terms of that capability of combining them both together. A few things to note as kind of warning signs or things to be aware of, not to do with this particular report. So firstly, be aware that this report is not designed for use by the candidates, so it should not be handed back to any of the candidates that go through the process. We have other reports available through the system which are more specifically designed in terms of the language and the content and the way the information is presented back. Those are designed to be handed back to your candidates. So that's a personal feedback report, for example, would be a good one to use. The language in this particular report is very much for your recruiters and for your interviewers, assessors, managers, someone that's making a selection decision about a particular candidate. That's the way this is designed, so stay clear of handing it straight back to a candidate. We'd also warn not to use this in isolation to make a recruitment decision, and that goes without saying, surely with all of our assessments, is that you cannot make a recruitment decision based on just one piece of information. However, this is a really good way of adding an extra element to that decision that you're making, and helping you make a well-rounded and informed choice between your candidates based on something which is quite specific to them. Also be aware that this is, of course, preference, not ability, and this is a common theme across all of the reports or personality reports that we get. Always bear in mind that we are not signifying that this would make someone bad at the job if it was a particularly low job matching score. However, we are just indicating that their preference shows that it might not be the right fit for them. It might not be something that they prefer in terms of their style of approach. It's not the kind of environment, role or skill set that is going to suit them in terms of their personality. And the final thing to be aware of is, of course, don't get your numbers in a twist. So bear in mind that the numbers that are reported, this 1 to 5 scale that you see, and the different traffic lights, that is reporting on the job match, not the STEM score. So, for example, when I see a job match of 5 on the assertive scale, that is not showing that someone has a strong preference for being assertive, such as in the report that we showed you there. That's just showing that it's a good match. And actually, in that instance, it was that someone actually had a lower preference, a kind of weaker preference for the assertive scale. So make sure you are conscious of that when you're using it. So that's all for now. I hope that's been helpful. Of course, if it is your first time using the selection report, or if it's something that you want to explore further, you are very welcome always to give us a call, and we're happy to advise and support you through that process of setting it up. But it's a really fantastic report, and we hope that you enjoy using it. And yes, do let us know how you get on. Thanks very much.